What's going on, guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to today's game review. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I hope you guys are enjoying the new weather, the new abundance of growth. And by growth, I mean plants growing. You know, everything's a blooming right now. Also, the quarantine is getting to me. You wanna know why? I have bangs. It's the ultimate level of desperation for a haircut. But for today's review, we are going to be reviewing Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. And this game, you guys, oh my god. We're going to be diving into her personal hell, and we're going to be exploring just the magnitude that this game has to offer. So sit tight, grab a coffee, grab a Red Bull, grab a tea, whatever your preference is, and let's enjoy this. Or let's contemplate everything, have an existential crisis, and a good cry afterwards. That's what I planned on doing, though. Now, to say this game was just an adventure is a massive, massive understatement. This isn't just a game that you play in one go, and then that's it, you're done. No, it's an entire experience. It's an entire physical, mental, it's an experience for all the senses. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is about this young Celtic warrior who goes out on a mission to find her lover's lost soul. On the surface, it sounds like an interesting plotline because you know within the game you fight monsters, you encounter unique creatures, stumble across points that drive the plotline even further in the game. It's all amazing, but it's not what makes this game and this story as expansive and as incredible as it really is. This now and forever will be one of my favorite games, and it brought me to an emotional standstill. The character Senua suffers from a form of psychosis called schizophrenia. Now, if you guys do not know what schizophrenia is, here is an explanation. Experiences both auditory and visual hallucinations, and those are some of the key factors that schizophrenic patients have. While there are a lot of schizophrenic patients who do not experience either auditory or visual hallucinations, those are the key signs that someone does have schizophrenia. They won't be able to think clearly, therefore they have a lot of auditory hallucinations and delusions and paranoia that is not there, or they'll have visual hallucinations and paranoia from those hallucinations that really are not there. These delusions and these hallucinations form her reality, and it forms everything that's around her. This causes chaos, it causes destruction, it causes a rot to grow, and it causes that rot to manifest, then bringing everything to life that she absolutely hates the most. You know, the things that were swept under the rug for too long, everything comes out. Now, Hellblade was created with the help of Paul Fletcher, who is a neuroscientist and psychosis expert at the University of Cambridge. He, along with Ninja Theory, created this beautiful cacophony of just fluid movements within a story, and it made everything crystal clear. It made it so it made everything clear. That's the best word that I can use to interpret how this game came across to me. They created a beautiful game that goes leaps and bounds ahead, and this game can actually be associated from any viewpoint, not just from someone who has schizophrenia. With her thoughts caught in a sandstorm of delusions, visual hallucinations, voices that try to trick her and also help her, she, to an extent, I felt, becomes angry and frustrated. But yet there's another side of where she's hopeful and she's determined to see the end, even if it means her own death. Ninja Theory created a character that someone could easily associate with, someone that, you know, it can associate with in terms of how the character acts, the conditions that she's in, even the way that she fears things. Now, since this disease affects just a wide range of the way a person acts, the way the person interacts, even with people, with family members, with friends, with coworkers, everything like that. This disease, you know, if somebody has hallucinations or delusions or everything combined in between, that can branch out into other things being created, like bipolar disorder, paranoia, anxiety, the list goes on. She thrives on the delusion, and she won't rest until she brings back the soul, because in Nordic tradition and in actually several cultures' traditions, you need to have a physical representation or a physical piece of the person in order to bring the soul back, because it needs to be put in the ground, it needs to be brought back to Mother Earth. That way the soul can reach the place of Valhalla, which is heaven. Fearful of what she might encounter, she witnesses these different hallucinations and monsters and creatures that she met on a spirit quest whenever she went to a place called the Wilds. Throughout the game, I really felt like I was walking in the shoes of someone who has schizophrenia. without exaggeration, without, saying, oh yeah, I really thought that I was experiencing that. No, throughout this game, I really felt like I was experiencing the voices, the hallucinations, all the factors that create her life in this cosmic illusion of the mind. It really takes you on an unforgettable journey with the use of binaural headphones. Ones that a lot of ASMR artists use? Those kinds of headphones, those kinds of microphones were used. And I thought that was a great incorporation of different types of sounds that can be put into a game to have a more immersive experience. And Ninja Theory was able to capture what having multiple voices, multiple entities are like, and relaying that to someone who has never had schizophrenia like myself. I don't know what it's like to have psychosis. I don't know what it's like to experience having multiple voices inside my head. I actually have a few friends who have schizophrenia, and it's very interesting to hear them say how spot on this game got the condition. I'm just amazed that they, like I said, that they could capture it for someone like myself who does not have the condition, who doesn't deal with anything of that sort, because I'm going in a blank slate. I'm going in not knowing, a lot of what people go through. I might know the technical terms and the technical lingo of schizophrenia, but knowing the technical side and the psychological side are completely different from dealing with. You see, the thing is that it's interesting because the auditory hallucinations, at least for me, made me feel, for the first time in a game, fearful of what's to come next. Like, it made me have anxiety towards the little moments of where a creature would appear, and I would hear like the different voices of Senua and everything like that. I'm just like, all I can say is now that I have experienced at least a taste of what it's like to have this form of psychosis, to experience what it's like for someone who does have it, I have so much respect for people who have schizophrenia or any kind of, really any kind of psychosis for that matter. Control, the strength, the power it takes to walk through life where your mind at times can be with you or heavily against you. So let's dive next into some simulated reality, which within the game Hellblade, it's a combination of puzzles, different simulations that you go through in terms of what she sees, what Senua looks at and sees with her own mind's eye. The combination of puzzles used to further the story made the game even more immersive to go through. Not very often do I find myself looking at games that actually pertain to the storyline of the actual game itself to this degree. You see, the thing is, for me, the only other time where I've really seen puzzles coincide with how the storyline of the game works was in Resident Evil, Sweet Home, The Evil Within, and the Silent Hill games. Not to say that other, games don't have puzzles that coincide with the story, but it's very seldom that you do see that. Normally, you just have to push a thing and then push another thing, and then, oh, look, something opens. The reason why I think that these puzzles are directly linked so much better, like the way that they do it is just so good. They actually link to the condition that Senua has. Like, very, very seldom do you really see the puzzles that thoroughly done to the point of where it just seamlessly goes through the game. It's linked to her condition, the history of her and her family, and how she perceives the world around her. The puzzles, such as finding shapes similar to those on doors to really unlock them, show that it's just the process of how her mind works, about how the schizophrenic patients who can spot patterns in everyday life, which is absolutely fascinating. And it's actually not just schizophrenic patients who can spot patterns in everyday life. Me, for example, I know my mom can do this too, of where like I'll be able to see different patterns in the trees in the forest, for example, or in the clouds or something like that. You can put faces together, you can put different numbers and letters and different symbols together, for example. So it's definitely not just schizophrenic patients or anybody with psychosis who can really put that thing together. That's why this game can be associated not just on that level. It can be very branched out, very associated with on so many different levels. Even with the topic of anxiety arose, like even when they brought up all the anxiety that she goes through, it was something that I heavily associated with. And without exaggeration, a lot of my anxiety really keeps me up at night. So to see that brought forth in a game so elegantly, so thoroughly done. I know I keep saying thoroughly and everything like that, but it's true. It's just very thoroughly brought to life. And to see her anxiety play out not just in the boss battles, but certain cutscenes, it made it more emotional for me than I ever would have dreamed possible in a game. And the thing is that it's done so respectively too, or respectably, I should say. Whenever you see this game, it's not done in a very haphazard way. It's done respectfully, it's done coherently, and I really, in all honesty, think that this should be a part of the curriculum at a university. If you're getting your psych degree, I feel like it should be a requirement that you play the game Hellblade. It really should. I mean, the everyday person couldn't comprehend what the disease is like, how to function with it, how to go about in a normal conversation with someone, you know, hearing one thing and then hearing the voice of the person who you're discussing things with. It can be very chaotic. With this game, I really feel like it's a necessity to bring it into the college and university setting. That way you can educate people and others and help them understand what it's like for those who do suffer with the condition. You know, to a respect, bringing people in who have, whatever it may be, anxiety, OCD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, paranoia, different types of diseases. That's fine. That's really good to bring people in who have those experiences with it. But to actually show through a simulation, that's priceless. So the gods were all that were believed in back in that time. You know, people thought that the gods were the be-all and end-all of every decision, everything that was done. They were trusted so much in the history of Celtic and Norse mythology, and there was a god of winter, there was a god of sadness, there was a god of birth, there was a god of fire. There were so many factors that controlled people's lives back in that time. When someone had what we know today as a mental disorder, it was known as the term guilt. When Senua goes into the wilds and is experiencing these horrible things, and she's basically going on like a spirit quest to an extent, she's experiencing what was called back then guilt. Zendel, her father, tries to control her through using the manipulation of what the gods were, you know, how she might be punished, you know, being manipulative and cruel towards her, and saying that her mother is now in the fire because of, you know, what she was going through. I'm completely paraphrasing right now, but to an extent, Zendel's character is one of just a cultist's mindset. If there was such a thing to exist back in the Celtic times, I don't know if there were really cults back then. The rot that appears on Senua's arm, according to Zembel, is that of the demons. It's it's that of the thing that really possesses her, aka all the things that she's going through within her head. He doesn't have a way to explain it, so he just calls it the rot. Since it is her father, she wants to trust him. She wants to, understand that, hey, it's my dad. He's supposed to be helping me here and not hurting me. Later on, Senua finds out that her father lied to her. He killed her mother because of the demons that were plaguing her thoughts. And since schizophrenia has a genetic link to it, it has, a genetic lineage to it. She has that same darkness that Zembel was so afraid that, Senua would have. And therefore Zembel tried to control Senua in the same way as the mother, if not driving her further into madness. I think there's a point in every human's life where you have to kind of learn how to love your chaos just a little bit, even though you hate it sometimes. By the end of the game, Senua reaches an epiphany of sorts. She looks within, and she looks for the answers instead of outside sources and her father and her mother and everything else. She just looks deep within for the first time. The voices start to, instead of harm her, they try to help her in new ways and start to motivate her, because depending on the mindset and depending on the situation that you are in, it can really, really navigate how a person experiences their schizophrenia. Now, this is, during the final part of the game, this is where Senua meets Hela for the first time. Now, in Norse mythology, Hela was banished with her siblings by Odin. Odin then gave her domination over 9 worlds of hell that make up Helheim. I found this really interesting in Norse mythology because there's different layers of hell, just as there were different layers of hell in Dante's Inferno. Dante spoke of 9 layers of death, and the 9th one is hell itself. So it really goes back and ties back into Norse mythology a little bit, which I think is very interesting. Hela's Hall, the place that she ruled over, even though she ruled over 9 levels of hell, there was a certain place of where her hall was, of where she was located and residing. Her hall was called Ilvnir, which I'm probably mispronouncing so much. And now Ilvnir directly translate into what is known as sleet cold. We can again reference Dante's depiction of hell here as well, because he discusses too a bitter, cold place as the 9th layer of hell, or the 9th level. It's very interesting how both Dante and Norse mythology think very similarly on the whole concept of hell. Thinking of hell in the same way, dark, cold, and lifeless. Very unique. Very, very unique, actually, because it's almost identical in the way that they think about it. This 9th layer is the last one, and it's just this cold, dark, dank, lifeless place that really has no existence or structure. Now, when Senua faces Hela, she is facing herself. Spoiler alert, I know. She's facing the part of her that she wants to extinguish and exile from her soul. She, whenever she battles Hela in the final state, she is killing everything around it. She doesn't actually get to go into combat with Hela herself. When Hela kills Senua, which you have this kind of brief interaction between Hela, the other Senua, and her for a moment as the final cutscene. Now, when Hela kills Senua, when the other Senua kills Senua, basically. That Senua is killing off of the part of her that is no longer needed. She's extinguishing that part of her that, she doesn't need to survive. She doesn't need the old version of her. That's gone. That's old. She's able to let go of her lover Dillion in a healthy way and move on from her anger and just bitter nature in general, from the hate that she had to her father Zimbil, to the probably repressed emotions that she had from her mother being killed at a very young age. So here are my final thoughts on the game Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. It's very simple in mechanics in how it's delivered as far as controls and puzzles go. That's all fine and dandy. The controls are really simple and easy to maneuver. Highly recommend this game for anyone who is mentally stable enough to play it, and I cannot stress that enough. Now, when I say mentally stable, I do not mean that as a diss. I do not mean that in a way of being patronizing. This is me, the writer, the person, conveying to the viewer, the reader, that I want you to have a wonderful time playing this. I want you guys to have an educational time, an eye-opening time playing this. I want you guys to play this game and walk away changed for the better. Now, if you guys are experiencing high levels of depression, or if you guys yourself have schizophrenia, I would not play this game for right now, or unless you have it under control and you see a therapist, or if you guys already know yourselves well enough to understand that, hey, I can watch this playthrough, or hey, I can play this game without it triggering me too deeply, then by all means, I would recommend playing this game. First, I would strongly say, if any of you guys have like I said, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, any form of psychosis, understand what this game is, please. This is not just a regular game that you pick up and say, oh, I'm going to play this for a jolly fun good hour. Test it out by seeing segments of parts of walkthroughs on YouTube. Look at the behind the scenes. Go about it very slowly. I do not want you guys having any sort of depressive episodes. I do not want you guys getting very badly triggered by this, because this game is a very unique experience. That is my disclaimer. That is my caveat. You will get sucked into this game, and without warning as well. Ninja Theory is very smart how they did the immersive tactics. They're very smart in how they, dare I say it, how they bluffed about having permadeath. The rot that grows on your arm, it's not gonna reach all the way up to your head. It's not. Okay, it's just not. It might get very close. It might get to like up here or something like that on your shoulder, but it's never gonna reach the top of your head. It was a smart choice. It was a very well done manipulative tactic, and I really like that they did that. It created a sense of nervous anticipation, and I felt such an urgent need to try to not die every single time that I had a boss encounter or an enemy encounter. There's a buildup of tension, and there's kind of like this really weird kind of energy every time you have a death in the game, because each time you get to a closeness or a resolution in the game, the darkness creeps up more and more and more, and you see that light at the end of the tunnel that seems so close yet so far away. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. For those of you who want to read the full article of my review, it'll be down in the description below so you guys can enjoy it, so you guys can read it. Share it, please. I'm trying to get my articles more out there, if you will. And yeah, if you guys want to see the articles early, I do have a link for my Patreon, which is also down in the description below. You guys get the articles a week in advance before everybody else does. But that's it for me. If you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below and let me know what kind of articles you would like me to write. I'm starting to take more requests for different types of articles besides game reviews. But stay casual to you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.